Reality is like a film set. There are directors, action, producers,
Are we on schedule?
and even actors.
Can somebody get me a coffee?
The trick is realizing that you are playing all of these roles. You are the executive producer of your reality. My name is Daniel,
My name is Lauren.
and we're here to break the fourth wall to discover what's behind the scenes. And what you hear just might have you saying, "That's so meta." Welcome, everybody, to That's So Meta, where...
We discuss the mystical, the magical, and the metaphysical.
That's right, we do. Well, we discussed it a little bit.
A little bit.
Now anymore, these are more like Daniel and Lauren vlog updates.
Yeah.
Because this is episode 31, and it has been 3 months since our last episode. I
I think
like
we could keep this at like a twice per year type of deal at this
you know,
point. Because
every
it just,
6 months.
just time gets away.
I feel like 3 months is a sweet spot. Like I'm ready to do one after 3 months. So that feels good. So welcome. If you are new to the show, we discuss a metaphysical topic while also giving life updates because we post so seldom that it's relevant to update you on our lives. So today's episode will be on a discussional topic on healing the inner child. What would you say to a childhood version of yourself? We've done shadow work in the past. This will be another touch on shadow work because so much has happened in the last 3 months that I feel like it's a topic that's always relevant to revisit. It's helpful. It's therapeutic. So that'll be today's episode's topic, but we have some vlog style life updates. What are we doing? What are we up to? What are we working on? What do we have coming out?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Life updates, Lauren.
Let's start with what are we wearing today?
What are we wearing?
What are we wearing? I feel like a lot of the time during our episodes, we want to showcase what we're wearing. Because like I think the last episode we were wearing Sleep Token merch. So this one, let's talk about what we're wearing. Mr. James is wearing a handmade by my sister,
Custom.
Kalina,
One of a kind.
for Christmas. Made this Alan Wake sweatshirt. It's got Alan Wake on the arm. It's got like a hidden alien on it. It's got Night Springs on it. Alan Wake is a video game series that Dan and I discovered relatively recently. We played the first game when it came out remastered on Switch. And then we found out that a few months later, the second game was going to be released. So it was like very serendipitous. We were just caught up on the first game. Second game comes out. We're obsessed with it. We're head over heels for it. It's the most like fascinating, narratively structured video game. It's just gorgeous and atmospheric and wonderful. So we're obsessed with it. So my wonderful, lovely sister Kalina made sweet Mr. James a custom sweatshirt. And what else are we doing with Alan Wake?
So Alan Wake is known for its cinematic, story-driven video game style. It's very niche in the sense where it's a psychological horror, but it's so rooted in film and cinema, right? It's written like a movie. There are live action cutscenes throughout the games that are live action actors are playing these. It's like watching a movie and playing a video game at the same time.
There's a lot of mixed media in it. So there's a real life rock band called Poets of the Fall that the developers of Alan Wake have worked with over the years on all of their multiple games. And Poets of the Fall has a fictional band in the Alan Wake universe called Old Gods of Asgard, and they write music for the game. So there's all these different elements. It's more than just a video game because it's a cinematic experience. It's a musical experience. There's like, in one of their games, there's like a puppet show. Like it's so expansive.
Multimedia. And as filmmakers and storytellers and screenplay writers ourselves, that's the kind of game that we gravitate towards. And even though it's a single player game, Lauren and I, we play it together as a couple. We take turns. She'll play a chapter. I'll play a chapter. It's very fun to watch the story develop. And as gamers, we're both gamers. Anything that's more cinematic, narrative driven, we're going to gravitate towards that. So as big like diehard fans of the Remedy Games universe and Alan Wake, we have decided to produce a very short, fun, just for the fun of it, Alan Wake fan film. Now, Daniel James and Tragic Hero Productions are no strangers to doing video game fan films. I've done several in the past. It's just something that I like to do. In terms of like marketing and advertising, it's a great way to get an audience to see your original work when you do something that you know will reach a wide scale mainstream audience like the gaming community. That drives traffic back into, being able to see my other stuff. But I am just genuinely a fan of the things that I love. And I like to sort of like see what I can do in that universe, right? So we've done Silent Hill. We've done The Slender Man. We've done, there was a video game produced from Finland that we did a whole fan film called Silence of the Sleep. So I'm no stranger to doing fan films, and this will be one that we really resonate with on like a creative level, right? So we're not going to disclose too many details about it because we're still in pre-production. This is a very inexpensive, tangible project. Fun.
Yeah.
That Lauren and I can do around bigger things like running our videography business, The Moment Imaging, producing our sci-fi epic, OMA, right? None of those things are diminished. None of those things are being taken away from by us doing little side projects, because something like really growing a video production business takes a lot of time. There are a lot of steps, moving parts. It can be a very slow process that requires a lot of time and energy.
Just like any business.
Like any business. And there's a lot of what I call like almost like lull windows, where it's like you're not fully able to do a lot based on the stage that you're at with growing a business, or you're not able to do a lot based on the stage that you're at with like a big movie like OMA, because other people could be working on things, or you might be working on a task that you can only do a little bit here and there. So, and it's all targeted in, like, say, for example, OMA, it's in the editing stage. We just have a scene or two left to cut and sequence, and then that whole film will be delivered to a visual effects artist who's doing all of the animations. But around our business and other projects, that can only be worked on so much. So doing a little side project to keep the creative energy flowing in terms of like, okay, well, if we're only editing OMA and we're in the sales stage and, getting everything licensed stage in the business, then what else can we be doing in our free time? Well, we can produce this little fan film just for fun, because it doesn't really cost much money, and it's all just for the fun, and it's something that we can be shooting. Right? So Alan Wake, we are doing a fan film. It shoots over March and April, and that will be free to watch. And so we're looking forward to that. What other kind of updates do we have? Well, what else is going on in our lives?
That is an excellent question. We, like you said, we're just trying to grow the business as per usual. It's always an uphill battle trying to get your business to exactly where you want it to be down the line. Working on producing OMA, gearing up for, all of our summer camp jobs.
Yeah, we have a busy season this year.
Big season this year. Big summer video season.
Right.
Very exciting. And what else do we have going on?
Well, it's crazy because, like, okay, maybe we do one episode every 3 months. Guilty. And then when we do a vlog update, we only have the same updates. But that shows you how slow the growth can be, how slow progress can be on endeavors that are like massive, huge undertakings for just two people. Like, we're small business owners. And in the growth of our video service, our production department, we've now expanded into marketing strategies. So we're not just like videographers now, but we're a video production house that is full service and offers marketing too. So with that type of growth, it opens new doors of opportunity. And we're somebody who has been like in a comfort zone for many years in regards to the type of work that we do, the type of clients that we service. And now we're expanding outside of that and growing. There's a lot of steps to it. So you're always going to get updates on like our production company, because it's always changing and getting bigger, right?
And that might be a good segue too to today's topic, because in learning how to better market and promote ourselves, how to, close sales and, all the nitty gritty stuff that's like not as fun. Because what we enjoy doing is the creation process, is being creative. But, there's a lot more to running a video business than just making dope videos that are really pretty to look at. There's a lot of like sales and talking to people and like turning cold leads into warm leads and da-da-da. And I think that throughout this process, something that I've recognized is that the idea of this type of socialization, this type of like sales, is really counterintuitive to like what I've always thought about myself.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of might be a good segue into understanding like what sort of inner shadow work do you have to overcome in order to progress and grow?
Yes.
In terms of accomplishing your goals.
I see that. Where your limitations are, where you might be holding yourself back and why. Mm-hmm. Those are all really good things that we can investigate on today's episode. So yes, if you are somebody who follows the journey and the story of Oma, I have been waiting on doing like a formal video announcement, because once I reach like a milestone in the post-production progress, I feel like it will really constitute a formal update. So if you are watching this video now and you're on my YouTube channel, go to my last vlog. I have a vlog that I did which dives a little bit deeper into the post-production process of Oma. So that is still in production. We're going on 3 years. Mm-hmm. It's fucking crazy.
But once again, if this is going to be your magnum opus, if this is your life's work,
yes, it is.
It's not going to happen in
overnight.
10 months.
No. It's common, actually.
It's your life's work. It's going to take your life.
It has already. The growth of our video production service is beautiful and wonderful, but it is so much work. It's a full-time job. That takes a lot of our time and our energy. The post-production of Oma is very slow, right? To give you guys a scope of reference, and then I'll move on from it. I did a sci-fi movie called Those Who Seek, which was about the concept of the channeling phenomenon and how that relates to extraterrestrials. That movie had less than a $10,000 budget, and it took me 2.5 years from the point that we wrote it and went into pre-production to the point that we released it free to watch. Mm-hmm. It took 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. That's the nature of an independent film that has a very skeleton crew, grassroots production. Mm-hmm. Then we did what I call as like the big brother or the sister project, which was the Inbound Interception. Exists in the same universe. It's about extraterrestrials. It's about the movement of planetary liberation. And that movie took me, as the producer of that project, I want to say 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. Just under 2.5 years.
Almost right on track.
It's right on track.
Yeah.
Almost like following the thread. And arguably, if you was to watch all 3 of these movies back to back, which I recommend you doing, you will see a growth and a progression in my competence and my creative skills as a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. But Oma is much bigger. It's much more grand in its production value. Mm-hmm. And the biggest point that I made in that vlog, which I still would like you to go listen to, but I'll reiterate here, is that people don't know what it takes to make a movie if you're not a filmmaker.
Right.
Whether you are working on the big production studio side, mid-level, low-budget production side, or independent, small-scale productions, which is what I produce mostly, you still have a team of people. You have multiple people that are designated and delegated per task, right? Mm-hmm. But you and me are doing everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing 100% of the cutting. Mm-hmm. of the movie. Mm-hmm. And there's no budget there's no financing for me to make income on Oma. Mm-hmm. It's my passion project.
It's your project.
So I invest time, energy, and money into it. I have a team of people that invest time, energy, and money into it. But I'm not generating any income. Mm-hmm. So I can only work on it little by little as I have the free time. Mm-hmm. But even so, on projects of this size, of the genre, it's so specific that there's generally huge teams that are doing what one person is doing right now. And then when we go to visual effects, I have a guy who's very talented, very creative, is going to be doing what would be a department of like 4 people. One guy going to do everything. You know, that takes extra time and energy and resources. And so when people don't understand, you know, how's the movie coming, or when is it going to be done, or why is it taking 3 years? Because we're doing what, you know, 100 people would be doing if it was financed and being ran like a business. Instead, it's a passion project that just requires a lot of love.
Right.
So it's coming. We're working on it. Every time we do an update, it's made progress, you know? So that was just a little like spin-off side story that I really wanted to go down, because I do get asked a lot, how's Oma doing? What's the status of the film? How's your video production company growing? Like, there's a lot happening. We're always making growth. We're always moving forward. But it's hard to measure that.
Right.
So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Right?
Yeah, totally. It's understandable that it takes this long. I think from my perspective, it's not something that I'm willing to rush through.
Right.
So it's going to take as long as it takes, unfortunately. But when it's done, it's going to be the best that we can produce.
That's right.
The best that we can make, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. It will be an example of what we can do with minimal help, small crew, very small money, but at the maximum output of what our personal skill levels are. Like Oma was always written, because it's a 20-year-old project, it was always written to measure my skill as an independent filmmaker.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what it's doing. So thank you for listening. Well, if you're not already bored by this vlog style update, Lauren and I were on the way home from Washington, D.C. when we had seen Keanu Reeves' rock band Dogstar live and in action, which is pretty fucking cool. Yeah. Keanu Reeves playing bass right in front of us.
One half of Wild Stallions.
One half of Wild Stallions right looking down at us, smiling at us, rocking out.
Yeah.
We were right in front of Keanu Reeves watching him play bass, which was very cool. His band Dogstar, which is a very metaphysical, extraterrestrial term, has been together since the 90s. And they broke up. They did a hiatus for many years, and they got back together, and we fucking got tickets to go see him. So we were driving home from the road trip, which was, how many hours was that? 4?
Yeah, like 4.
Just around 4.
Not to glaze past what else we did in DC, which was visit our dear friend Tony Ghazi.
We visited Tony Ghazi, who we love, who's a friend of ours.
We love him so much. And
he's the Antarian heart.
Very generously gave us little, he sells these stone hand-carved mantis heads, and he very generously gave us each one. So there's one right here.
Gifted these to us, and they're actually made with specific crystal, rock, and stone types, mineral types that have powerful properties, right? So these are tools that he makes. I'm really impressed by the concept of these mantis heads, because he channels a extraterrestrial collective of mantis, and his brand name is the Antarian Heart. And the properties that you get with these symbols of the beings he work with really help serve as an anchoring tool, as a connection to this ET star race that he works with. So it's a very beautiful concept. I resonate with it very much. Many
years ago, I think you led me through a guided meditation.
Yes, I did.
And I had an experience where I remembered an incarnation of being a mantis being.
Yes.
And then, you know, we meet up with Tony, and then he gives us these beautiful mantis heads. And it just was like so like healing, like so
affirmative, right? Like it was like a synchronicity that was like validating.
Absolutely.
Confirmation.
Yeah. Yep,
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Lauren's got like an insect incarnation that we've tapped into before. So that was a cool sync between her and Tony. Tony is somebody, not to go too deep into it, but Tony and I specifically have a long incarnational lineage together in something called the Orion Wars, which is what Oma is about. So Tony is family.
Yeah.
On a spiritual level to us. So check out these beautiful, beautiful busts. You can get them. Look up the Antarian Heart on Instagram. He has a website, his Facebook. That's Tony Ghazi. Just a little promotion there for our friend because they are beautiful pieces that
Absolutely
put off
stunning.
a presence all of their own.
I believe they're also charged with, what was it, like multi-million-year-old
He has
mantis
like actual like preserved
encased in amber.
preserved little mantis.
And he charges all of his mantis heads with them. Just saying, I just love them so much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't stop talking about them.
We both have our own.
Yeah.
So there you have it. We love you, Tony.
I love you, Tony.
So we're driving home from Dogstar and meeting Tony, and we got off on this topic that really resonated with us both. It kind of hit us pretty hard. And it was, what would you say to your childhood self? And this gets into the topic of like healing the inner child, shadow work, right? And we just in conversation like this, that's why we don't really do lectures anymore. We used to, like, the old format of the show was, let's write a lecture and give it about this topic. But now we just like to talk, because sometimes just following the thread of consciousness on an idea that resonates can actually uncover some really deep, powerful concepts. Would you agree? Yeah. So we were talking in the car, and I was like, what would you tell your childhood Lauren, little Lauren, if you could give her wisdom, messages, ideas? And we asked each other these questions back and forth. And I've just been pondering on it because, I've gone through loss and grief, and I deal with the same type of challenges in my day-to-day life that everybody does. Health, money, whatever. All of the 3D human challenges that we deal with, I have them just like you guys, just like everybody does. And sometimes if I knew what I know now, I could so better manage those. I'd be so much more prepared. I would feel like I could navigate the density and the challenge of living in a 3D incarnation so much better. What would you tell your childhood self?
If I could speak candidly about my personal experience, I think for the longest time I held, because recently we went through old home videos of mine.
Yeah.
And I got to literally see little me like running around and being, with like a bowl haircut.
It was really beautiful. Really
running,
cute.
Yeah, just running around being cute, being shy, being whatever. And when I saw her on the video, my gut reaction is just like, I wanted to just like squish her out. Like I just wanted to like get rid of her. Because there's so much like pain and heartbreak there. I had a very fortunate childhood. Like nothing's like awful. It's just the spark of who I was as a child. I've squished it a lot. And so that was my instinct. But I think ultimately, if I had the opportunity to talk to my younger self, I wouldn't be like, invest in Apple. You know what I mean? I would simply just tell her that it's okay to sparkle. It's okay to be, girly and sweet and talkative and all that stuff. And then it's okay to take up space, because I still struggle with that to this day. The fear of taking up space. I'm always shrinking myself. I'm always squishing myself. So I think that would be the thing that I would tell my inner child. What about you?
That's strong. Thank you for sharing that. I would tell myself that so many statements that wouldn't make sense to little Daniel James, but have so much value to me today, that time is an illusion, and you're not racing to get anywhere by a certain time. I would tell little Daniel that it's okay to not be okay. There isn't a perfect state of being. There isn't a perfect version of you that you'll ever achieve. You will always be evolving and transforming and growing into something that's more representative of the way that you prefer to see yourself, of what your imagination can create, but you might never achieve any state of perfection, and that is the goal. That's the journey, to always be evolving, to always be transforming. I would tell little Daniel that, You might not always be able to measure any sort of definition of success, but your existence is important. You exist for a reason, and you matter. And just being here, being alive, creating your art, telling your story, helping your friends and your family, making content for people, whatever it is that you will do when you grow up, that's the way. That is the total encompassing reason for life. You are doing your purpose. You are fulfilling your reason for being here, your mission on earth. It's happening. It might not be measurable. It might not be something that you can check off, as a goal achieved, but your existence alone is proof enough that you have importance, that you exist for a reason, and that will always change, but it's part of life. And I would tell little Daniel James that although you feel alone sometimes, and you're depending on what year it is that we're talking to little Daniel James, whether you feel alone and you don't quite have a voice, you will find it. You will find what that is. And to trust in your inner voice, trust in your spirit, trust in that your heart and your spirit are always speaking to you and guiding you through your life. If you just learn to listen and trust it, it will be so powerful in your journey. To trust your intuition, trust spirit, trust your heart. Failure isn't real. It doesn't exist.
It's a journey all in itself to understand what your inner voice sounds like so that you can trust it. I think a lot of people spend a lot of their time disagreeing with themselves.
That's right.
Themselves. And it can get to a point where you can't actually hear your inner voice anymore because you've repressed it so much.
Yeah. We block it out.
Yeah. So I think just getting to a point where every time you sort of have an intuition about something, regardless of whether or not you listen to it and follow what it says, just recognizing that it's there is kind of the first step.
Acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then eventually you'll be able to hear it more clearly and follow it more intuitively.
I agree. So with the concept of shadow work and healing the inner child, I was thinking about an idea that's with the inner child, there's so much that when it comes to healing the inner child, you can tell it that it's okay. You haven't done anything wrong. It's not your fault. You can say those things. But so much psychological trauma happens to us as kids when you feel like the things that are going wrong in life, whether it's with your siblings, your parents, school, family, social dynamics, you could so easily blame yourself and judge yourself and find reasons to believe that this is your fault.
But you're just a kid. You don't know a thing.
You don't know a thing.
But
when we tell our inner child, it's okay, it's not your fault. How do we convince them of that? How do you sit down with your childhood self, 10 years old, 6 years old, 15, right? What do you say to convince them that it's not your fault, that it's okay, when so much of society really turns the arrows and the guns back on the self and says, this is all my fault, or this is only happening because of me. That can really be programmed into kids when they're young. Even if they're not told that by an adult or an authority figure, you could still believe that because you just don't know why things happen.
Right.
What do you say? What do you say to that 10-year-old, to that 15-year-old, to that 6-year-old, that it's okay and it's not your fault?
That's exactly what you say. You say it until you believe it. You start to reprogram your thoughts starting now and backdate them.
You're right.
Just every time you think every time you think a negative thought, replace it, say the negative thought, recognize that you're saying it. That's the first thing, is acknowledging that there's a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next step would be pairing the negative thought with a positive one.
Yeah, you just touched on a really key point. So we've talked about the concept of linear time all on this show a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always studying and researching more and understanding the more complexity of how nonlinear time is.
Mm-hmm.
And, time moves sideways.
Mm-hmm.
It moves backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most powerful meditations that I learned, I think the year was 2000 and, what year was it? 13. I learned this powerful meditation where you can actually change your current version of reality by healing the past.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that using the concept that time is nonlinear, and you can actually imagine the past happening differently.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is if you go into like a meditation, like an altered state,
Mm-hmm.
and you imagine that broken, damaged, traumatized version of yourself as a child, they actually still exist there
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in creation right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to try to convince them of anything, but rather go back to that version in your mind, in your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And using nonlinear time, you can heal that trauma
Mm-hmm.
by instilling what you know now into that childhood version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like you're its spirit guide.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is getting like really meta, but that's what our show is. You could be your own spirit guide
Mm-hmm.
by using the concept of non-linear time mechanics. And here's how you do that. It's all quantum energy. It's all quantum probable energy that's influenced by our intention and our free will. So you imagine that childhood version of yourself and you go back to it as your own spirit guide, who's more evolved, more expanded, more grown in terms of its consciousness and its understanding of the way reality works. And you sit with it when it's broken, when it's crying, when it's sad, when it's confused. Because trust me, I had many nights as a kid, feeling alone and feeling guilty and not understanding why life is so hard for my family or for me. And I can sit with myself and just hold it in that embrace of like, you're right where you need to be. It is okay.
A good example of this conversation is only now coming to me, which is really funny. The book Running from Safety.
Yes.
By Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Is that his name? The author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
We're still reading
Richard Bach.
Richard Bach.
He, in the basis of that novel is that he goes back in time, or he kind of like meditates himself back in time to talk to his younger self and give his younger self advice. But the flip side of it is you do all this work, right? To heal your inner child. You make peace with the child that you were. What then can you learn from them? Right? Because being a kid is some of the most like exploratory years of your life.
Yeah.
The most imaginative, the most surprising and exciting, because you're always learning something new.
Constantly.
Everything's
new to you.
Everything is new. So what can you, once you have healed your inner child, what can you do? What can you learn from them? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's almost like our inner child is still a teacher.
Oh, absolutely.
The way that book depicts.
Absolutely. Because there's a certain, there's so many lessons you can learn just from approaching the world from the perspective of somebody who's like a little bit more naive,
New.
a little bit more optimistic, not as jaded and not as exhausted by the life that's been lived. Everything's new and fresh and exciting.
Right.
And you can sort of reincorporate that. It's a two-way street of learning when it comes to doing inner child work.
Now that's powerful. I'm so glad you brought up that book. We're reading this book that the brief history lesson is my mom and I got that book when I was a little kid, when I was little Dickie's age from the book. And we bought it from like a Safeway, discount bin. and started reading it together. And we had never read beyond a certain chapter. Life happens and we didn't finish it. And my mom and I talked about that book over the course of many years. And even to the point where she lost our copy and bought a new copy. Mm-hmm. And then what is truly magical and synchronistic, how spirit works, is how like my mother's always guiding us since her passing, is that she bought a replacement of our copy, right? And read about up to the point that her and I left off at. And then when she passed and we went through her personal things, I actually found the old original copy that she lost that left off on chapter 8. Mm-hmm. And then the very last text message that I received from my mom on an old phone, which is many years old, I powered up all 3 of my old phones just to see what pictures and text messages I had from her. So my current phone has a text thread with her. Then my previous phone that I don't use anymore still powers on, and you can access the old text messages. Her and I were discussing that book and how she had bought it again because she lost the original copy, and that she left off on we were talking like, what chapter did we leave off on? Chapter 8. And then Lauren and I started to read the book ourselves when I took it home. And I found the bookmarker that we left off on, which was chapter 8, which is where she left off reading the second version of the book she bought.
Yeah.
And I don't even have the copy of the book that she bought as a replacement. I have the original that her and I bought when I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. So we're slowly reading the book and learning from it, which is about like this man who basically exists in 3 stages of his life.
Mm-hmm. It's
little kid,
semi-autobiographical because it's written from the author's
point of view,
and the main character is the author in a way.
And so it's told from the perspective of his middle age. What is he in his 50s or the 40s or something?
40s, I think.
And he is greeted by a future older version of himself. We assume.
Well, we assume. We actually haven't finished.
We haven't
the
read
book.
the book.
We literally stopped at chapter 8. The same way that
my mom and
they
I did,
and his mom did. Like for some reason, we can't get past this chapter.
We will,
but we will.
And so, all right, I assume it's an older version of the man.
Feels like it.
Who is leading him through the journey of healing his inner child, talking to the child, Dickie, from the perspective of the middle-aged man. So that analogy, that concept really serves impact in this discussion in the sense where I believe you can actually, through visualization, through imagination, and through quantum mechanics, which is nonlinear time, you can go back to your childhood as a future version of yourself, which is in a sense a spirit guide, which is probably all our spirit guides are, is
more
future versions, more of the self, and sit with them and talk with them and guide them and know that in this imagination meditation, you are having a real impact. And the more healing you can facilitate for your inner child, the more it will change you today.
Right.
The more in the now you will evolve and expand and grow and be more prepared to be adult or go into your older years because you have done the work in backdating your healing principles and your love and your patience to that inner child that just is confused and often lost. Not every kid fucking grows up with a lot of money. Not every kid grows up in perfect health. Not every kid grows up with the circumstances and the tools that they need to be successful.
Right.
Okay? But you can go to that kid and you can heal them and train them on how to become a version of yourself today that you most desire. You know? This isn't just philosophy. This is a real thing that you can do. I believe that book depicts a real actual exercise, and we're telling you guys an actionable exercise that you can do. Write down on a piece of paper if you like to stay conscious. Start to write who you are today. What do you look like? What do you do for work? How's your health? What's your relationships like? What are your goals and dreams in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, right? Then go back and write your childhood self. What are they like? What did they go through, linearly speaking? And what can you tell them? What can you teach them from a more expanded, weathered version? And know that you're writing a story that can be true. It doesn't have to be a work of fiction. This is a power exercise, powerful exercise. Or if you're someone like me, I like to go into deep meditative altered states, total trance. And I go back into visual stories like astral projection, remote viewing. And I can then go back to that inner child who experienced what it experienced and help create a new past from the now moment, which can then reshape my version of reality today. That's a real thing. And I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Well, I think personally the biggest part of healing your inner child is putting at peace all of the shadow work and all of the trauma that you've experienced so that you can just continue on from now empowered and understand your place and understand what you're capable of if you were given that much self-love.
Yeah.
You know,
That forgiveness.
Because I think, just speaking for myself, a lot of my inner child stuff is because, like I said, I would always squish it. I would squish her down. I would minimize her because I was afraid of taking up space. And so what would it look like if little me took up the space that she wanted to?
Yeah. That's huge.
You know?
Forgive her.
What would that look like?
Forgive her.
And how can I use that now? And how would that impact, walking into a sales meeting, knowing that I can take up the space that I need
that
to.
You're allowed to be there.
Yeah, that I'm allowed to be
you
there.
You have
that I
permission
should be there.
to speak.
Yeah. So
That's huge.
It ripple effects into adulthood.
That's huge.
That's all.
No, that's huge. Yeah, I think the key word I keep repeating, forgiveness.
Yeah,
because if
it's so much forgiveness.
As a kid, feel like you're doing something wrong, I know I'm repeating myself. Forgive that person. Forgive that kid. Forgive yourself. And tell them that, hey, you're right where you need to be. You're the most important person in this room right now. You have every right to speak. You have every right to play. You have every right to yell. You have every right to cry. You have my permission.
Holding space for yourself and just treating everything with just the utmost kindness, because that's all you deserve. Nobody else is going to be kind to you.
Right.
Might as well be kind to yourself.
First.
Yeah,
listen to this. You have my permission to forgive yourself. You are absolved of everything that you feel like you've done wrong. And you're allowed to forgive yourself because you can just choose that. Just say, yes, I forgive myself.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody's permission to say, you know what? I was a fucking kid.
Yeah.
I was a fucking kid, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You have my permission to forgive yourself. You know?
Yeah. It's powerful stuff, man.
Well, I think it's
hard.
important.
It's important. Oh my gosh, it is important.
It's important.
Yeah.
And I hope that helps you guys listening. I hope you can take this as an actionable exercise.
Yeah.
Because that's what I wanted this episode to be. Sometimes we just riff on some knowledge, drop some data. But I wanted you guys to have a tool that you can just say, you know what? I'm going to write all this down in a book. I'm going to imagine it in a meditation, but I am going to fucking say it's okay.
Yeah.
Because I choose to.
Something that is kind of funny. I don't know. A kind of actionable plan you can do if you're not one for meditation, if meditation's too difficult for you, because I know that it can be really challenging for me, despite knowing your guided meditation and how to incorporate that. Sometimes it's just hard.
Yep.
Something that you can do, which is a little bit silly, but it does work, is just have a photo of your younger self around.
Yeah.
And every time that you say something mean to yourself or you say something negative about yourself, and just look at your younger self and realize that that's kind of who you're talking to, and that you want to be kinder
to
your younger self. So just having that photo around you know, because oftentimes when people get into like defense or frustration or whatever, it's all comes from the inner turmoil of what you were like as a child.
That trauma.
So I know that there's a technique with couples where you can have like little portraits of the two of you when you're young, and when you're in the middle of an argument, recognize that that's who you're talking to. The younger Daniel James is who I'm talking to, because the defensive version of yourself is kind of stunted at a younger age,
Right.
until you do the work to grow it and to change it and change that perspective. So to have those little portraits around kind of reminds you who you're actually talking to.
Yep.
You're
And
just a bigger version of that child.
And if you're somebody who feels triggered by seeing pictures or videos of your younger self, that's because it's bringing up a traumatic period. Don't run from that.
Yeah.
Running from safety. Don't run from safety. Right? Know that there's safety in there when you acknowledge it and heal it.
Yeah, I couldn't look at myself as a kid for a long time.
Because it brings back the memories of that time period, but that's okay. That's healing. That's shadow work.
Yep.
Go there. Sit with the uncomfortable moments. Sit with the fucking memories.
The shame and the guilt.
The shame and the guilt.
Negativity, because ultimately your work is to replace those feelings with love and kindness and support.
Yes. Integrate those. Allow them to serve the tool that they are in your life. And then know when it's time to say, I forgive you. I'm absolved of that, and I'm changed, and I'm anew. Know that step. Know those steps for you and choose them. You can stay wherever you are in your healing journey as long as you want. But what I want to say and instill is that it's okay to choose something different for yourself. That's where you do it. I love the pictures and the videos ideas, because so many of us can't go back there.
Yeah.
But there's value, their presence for you. You know, that little fucking kid is your best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
And final word, because I think about this all the time. Another thing you can think about is, if little you is standing in front of you, what steps can you be taking so that when little you is looking up at grown you are safety for them. You are their like goals. You are everything that they want when they see you grown. What does that look like? Like, what were your childhood goals that you wanted to achieve? And how can you sort of integrate them into your life now? Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. That's huge.
And are you somebody that your inner child would feel safe with?
Yeah.
Feel happy with, feel comfortable with?
Yeah. That's also a very helpful
I think
tool.
about it all the time. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. See, don't be sorry.
Yeah.
Don't be sorry. Take up space right here. That's huge.
I'm on it.
Use your voice. You're allowed to say that. You're allowed to feel that. Tell your childhood self that, and I'll do the same. There it is.
Inner child.
Inner child, shadow work, healing. You know?
We did it.
This has been another vlog update from the Moment Imaging.
Is that all we had to talk about? Did we do it?
That
We
was
nailed
the
it?
episode. Yeah.
Go us.
No, that was good. I mean, I'm glad we had this discussion, because we talked about it in the car so many months ago. And I was like, hey, that's going to be our next episode. And it was.
We did it.
See how that works?
Yeah.
Past Dan,
Influenced current Dan.
right?
Yeah.
This Dan.
You from 2 years ago is a version of your inner child.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
I do.
There we go. Inner
Well,
child. Inner work.
Inner work. We
Shadow
got the
work.
Steel Town cups. Okay. There it is.
There we have it.
That's so meta. We'll see you in how long, Lauren?
4 months.
3 months.